Hello, everyone, and welcome to WWE Discussion. In today's episode, I'm going to discuss the August 11th edition of SmackDown. The big question for this episode was, what is the future of the Bloodline following the betrayal of Jey by Jimmy? And with that, we're going to get into the action, starting with
Edge challenging Sheamus. So next week on Friday Night Smackdown, not only is it a celebration of 25 years of Edge, but it is also Edge versus Sheamus next week. I was quite surprised when Edge said that these two had never faced off in the ring. I would have thought at least it would happen at least one time. It is not, so we are in for a treat next week, ladies and gentlemen. And this was a genuine and touching promo segment here, complete with some nice ribbon between two guys who are, you can tell they have quite the bond between each other. And it concluded with the Celtic Warrior accepting the challenge and hoping that his friend did not make a mistake challenging him to a match. So that match is going to be a banger, and anything less, well, let's not even think about that. It's a showdown between two grizzled veterans, as Edge so eloquently put it, and it's also a great way to celebrate 25 years of Edge. So, yeah, looking forward to next week, looking forward to this matchup. And then the conclusion of this show, it answered probably about the number one question on the WWE Universe's mind, and that is, what is the future of the Bloodline? So, we all know Jimmy betrayed Jey at SummerSlam, and Roman remains not only the Universal Champion, but also the Tribal Chief. And given the way that Tribal Combat match ended, it was of the utmost importance for WWE to provide a logical explanation for Jimmy's betrayal of Jey, and it did just that. Mostly. I mean, I wouldn't say it's 100% solid, but for the most part, it's pretty solid. Jimmy explained that having seen what being the Tribal Chief did to Roman Reigns, how it corrupted him, how it changed him, well, he loves his brother so much that he simply just did not want Jey to become Roman. He didn't want him to become corrupted like Roman. And it was an interesting explanation. An unexpected one, perhaps, but certainly one that's more interesting and more creative than the jealousy story. And as I said, it from a logic standpoint, it does kind of make sense. It does kind of use that whole cliche of, I did it because I loved you, I did it because I wanted to protect you. It is a bit cliche, but again, it's better than the jealousy storyline. So, because I think doesn't go there. But even with that explanation, that doesn't mean Jey accepted it, which he definitely did not, as he nailed his brother with a super kick. Well, actually, before he nailed his brother with a super kick, he nailed Roman Reigns with a super kick, and then nailed Sikoa with a super kick, and then proceeded to lay out Reigns with a spear, and then nailed his brother with a super kick before walking out on the show and on WWE, basically stating that he was done with it all, which ended the show on a rather solid cliffhanger when it comes to questions about his status. And not only that, but it creates perhaps a renewed intrigue in the Bloodline story after it seemed like it kind of faded after SummerSlam, which was certainly understandable. When you have a long-standing story like this, and you reach kind of like a climax that was like Jey Uso versus Roman Reigns, it can be hard to kind of top that, and it can be kind of hard to go forward from there or find the next chapter of the story from there, or create the next chapter of the story from there. And I think so far they're off to a pretty good start. Again, creating renewed intrigue in the story, crafting a solid cliffhanger, buying WWE some time to figure out where the story goes from here. I talked about Uso versus Reigns kind of being a bit of a climax. Not to say that's the end of the story, but you went up. Now you're kind of going back down, and now you gotta try to level out and go back up, if that makes any sense. The reaction from Jey as he walked out of Friday night suggests that he was not hurt by the SummerSlam loss, and if anything, it looks like he'll bounce back. Can't say for certain, but so far so good. He appears to be back on the right track. So in conclusion, interesting show to say the least. Some of the creative quite confusing, like the the renewal of the Charlotte and Asuka rivalry, only for that match to end in a DQ. I guess Damage Control is back to being a dominant trio now that Io is champion again, or now that Io is champion, I guess, or maybe not. I don't know. I'm not exactly sure what the whole goal is right there. And also Styles versus Cross, continuing that feud was another confusing creative decision, but I guess that's over. And yeah, also subbing Mysterio for Escobar after building up Escobar versus Theory, and even giving Escobar non-title win over Theory. So not only does Mysterio take his place, but he wins the US title. So yeah, confusing creative decisions and an apparent lack of obvious direction outside of the Bloodline story. Edge versus Sheamus, talked about it earlier. It's going to be great, and their exchange was a fun segment. It is nice to see Damage Control potentially heating back up. Again, right? I mean, yeah, it's nice to see him heating back up. And WWE is keeping LA Knight on a winning streak. He picked up a win over Top Dollar. Match was nothing, but a win's a win. The booking of the US title match and the decision to put Rey Mysterio over Austin Theory, odd choice. Unless there are plans for Escobar and or the LWO to turn on Mysterio, it's kind of hard to see what WWE was trying to do here. Unless Rey Mysterio is supposed to win the match versus Escobar, and then they kind of had to change things with the injury. But why not just stick with Escobar versus Mysterio? I mean, I don't really know what they're trying to do here. I guess we'll just have to see how it plays out, but talk about confusing, it is kind of confusing. So this episode of SmackDown, not really good follow-up to SummerSlam. Hopefully with Payback coming up in September. I mean, there's still some time, but I think it's right at the beginning of September, so hopefully WWE can reignite the product and focus on building up the card for that show. So yeah, not the greatest, bit of a misstep coming out of SummerSlam this episode, but yeah, again, hopefully reignite the product and start lining up the Payback card, or start building up the Payback card. Looking at this episode of SmackDown, it's hard to say what exactly, if anything, would make that card from this episode. And with that, we'll go on and wrap up this episode of the WWE Discussion. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to hit that like button down below.